Do you think that the age of agencies reporting rankings is coming to an end? Well, then it's a question of where to be seen. And you've already listed a few of the options that people have, but Google, YouTube, Reddit, LinkedIn, industry publications, the LLMs, everywhere. How do you decide where a surface or which surface a brand should be visible on? How does your team go about optimizing for that?
Rather than be positioned 6, 10, or 100 on organic search, we can be very effective producing and engaging with prospects in Reddit, and that still feeds into LLMs and supports in generative search. It's just not just doing it in a different playing field. Am I really all that worried that someone clicked to my website or clicked on my ad? I'm not. It's reach and frequency is our measures, right? And when I turn that into search, I don't necessarily care about rankings. I care about views. Like, things are becoming more billboard oriented in the world of being found, right? But like the ever expanding world of like what SEO means. It used to just mean Google, but Reddit's crawlable, right? Reddit's cited on LLMs. YouTube is now crawlable. LinkedIn is now crawlable.
Welcome to SEO On-Air. We have Sam Heaton joining us today for this episode of how to become the guy in a market with 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 buyers. How do you become the guy? We have a theme today where we all wear black shirts, so I appreciate that Sam followed the dress code. But today, some B2B companies do not need 1,000,000 visitors. They have only 10 visitors a month or 100 or 1,000 and potentially only that many realistic buyers. The sale can take a year, involve several decision makers, and potentially be worth millions of dollars. In that environment, ranking is not enough. Traffic is not enough. Even being visible is not necessarily enough. The company has to become the name that buyers recognize, remember, and trust when the opportunity finally arrives. This episode explores how brand strategy, creative work, SEO, distribution, authority, and automation come together to make all of that happen. And with us today, again, to drive this topic home is Sam Heaton. So Sam is the Director of Digital Marketing at Atomic Dust. Thank you for joining us, Sam. Spent more than a decade working across SEO, paid media, marketing automation, demand generation, and brand evolution. What makes your perspective and his perspective especially interesting is where he does that work. Atomic Dust is a design and branding agency that works with companies in healthcare, construction, architecture, logistics, technology, and other industries that are not always considered easy to market or very sexy. Many of these companies sell highly technical, high value services to extremely small audiences. Sometimes there may be only 100 realistic buyers in their entire market. During our first conversation, you said something that stuck with me. If you're not the guy, you're not the guy. Today, we're talking about what it actually takes to become the guy. Thanks again for joining us, Sam. How are you?
What's going on? Thanks for the intro. It's so nice. I should be hiring you to do all my intros from here on out for future sales calls.
That theme guy, yeah, that theme guy. I think it's from what's A Knight's Tale. I can be like the call out guy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm doing great. It's another Wednesday in the agency world, which means things are on fire. There's the phone's ringing, and you know what? We're all trying to survive. And so, you know what? I'm doing great.
I took an hour of your time to get away from the fire and cool off for a little bit. So that should be good.
Love that.
In our first conversation, you described yourself as a counterculture guy or an artsy guy. Help our viewers understand what that means.
I think this is hilarious. I play such a dichotomy in the design world and being in this industry because I'm a jock by background. I grew up playing lacrosse. I own a lacrosse club outside of this. I spend my days in like a locker room setting. But I find myself in the design world with creatives who inspire me every single day. Everything from writers, designers, devs, you name it. People who are bringing art to life and design to function is, I think, really, really interesting to me. And it's put me in a position where I have now used that as part of my identity. And so while I'm a jock on surface, I am also obsessed with things like architecture, furniture design, interior design, all these other things that people scoff at me when I say that those are my interests, but that has definitely become, more of who I am as I've spent the last decade in the design.
Oh, I like it. I think that is more unique in the industry, that the athletic background I don't see as often in marketing. It definitely is.
I'm the anomaly here for sure. Everyone else is a high functioning artist who is producing, artistic work that's actually used to make money for businesses. I'm the loud, brash type that has no artistic bone in my body, but I think the use of creativity to solve business problems is just so interesting to me.
Well, I know from the putting out fires conversation when we talked a little bit earlier that you are quite busy at Atomic Dust. You say you're handling nearly or overseeing nearly half of the business at Atomic Dust, and you said your calendar might freak us out. What does your actual day-to-day job look like now?
I was laughing. I was getting prepared for the month of June a couple of weeks ago. It's crazy. It's already June. But I was working with my PM to basically find time, and I had 71 hours of meetings booked for the month of June before the month started. Right? And it was like, man, this is crazy. This is crazy. And so part of my job here is, well, a big part of my job, I really fashion it into sales and then actually client deliverables, right? And so my job as it pertains to the clients that we serve is making sure that the work that we're producing is up to not only the client standards and the strategies that we're putting forward, but also to the Atomic Dust standard. We've been in business for 25 years. We're a boutique shop. We are the creative agency around the Midwest by our standards and others. And so, my day-to-day really looks like, hey, is this work really good? Does it fit the goals that we have, that we've set for the client, the project itself? And then being able to deliver on that work to the clients. It also looks
why would Atomic Dust take a risk on a jock like you, Sam?
Sometimes you need someone to just sell things or to talk a lot and to confidently walk into boardrooms, and I'll gladly be your guy.
Tell me a little bit about how Atomic Dust started.
Yeah, so I'm obsessed with this business. Atomic Dust was founded in 2001 by a guy named Mike Spakowski. He's our founder, and he's our creative director here in-house as well. Atomic Dust, Mike and a couple of his buddies got into graphic design really on the onset of the internet. And they ended up betting on themselves and starting a creative agency with really no prior training, knowledge, educational background on it, and really caught the wave of the internet and became a web design and web development shop from the very get-go. But what we ended up finding out in those early days, as this internet thing was catching on, is as you're designing and building new websites for businesses, you often found yourself rebranding those businesses unbeknownst to us. And we needed a process to formalize that so we could actually get paid for the work that we were providing. Because brand is a lot deeper than just shapes and colors and logos, right? It's positioning, it's how you present yourself, especially right? Today, right? And it's all of those things. And so what ended up starting as a web design and development shop quickly pivoted into a branding agency that once those brand and your market positioning was established and defined, how do you take that out into the world? And for most businesses, especially in the B2B space, your brick and mortar is really your website. And so for the vast majority of our life cycle, we've been heavily focused on crafting new brands or brand refreshes for businesses who are in a transitional period, and then having to take that back into market via ads, websites, go-to-market collateral, trade shows, you name it. Any of those creative outputs that help with distribution has fallen under our team's umbrella.
Our viewers might not need me to ask this question right now, but I'm going to ask it anyways because
Sure.
I had it prepared. You told me that you can rant for hours. What marketing opinion could you rant for hours about with no preparation?
Oh, man. There's so many.
I think we already warmed up a little bit.
Yeah, I know. There's so many. I think, marketing automation in tech is somewhere that I nerd out on. It's really a core identity of mine. It's how this continues to progress out into the world and into space, right? We hear about AI every single day, but what's that actually mean in terms of application? I think that's something that I really feel that Atomic Dust operates in the forefront, and something that I feel really passionate about. I also think I've been in the SEO space for a decade now, but I feel really comfortable talking about the life cycle of SEO over the last 10 plus years, where it's going and what that actually means for generative search. I think there's a lot of people who, want to say that they're the savant for tomorrow, when in actuality, things just look a hell of a lot like they did 10 years ago on the SEO front. Like, what's broke ain't changing. And so that's probably another area that I feel really comfortable.
I think we probably brought you onto the right podcast then. Again, thanks for being on SEO On-Air.
Yeah.
One of the things, the central problem that I think we were seeing when we were talking with you is that brand is getting a little more complicated than it's ever been before. Brand was logos and shapes, I think, for many people for the last few decades, but the brand image has become far more especially with the use of AI. You mentioned that you guys work with a lot of companies that may not have a sexy brand, and your job is to make it sexy. That sounds completely different than what we've seen in marketing today. Tell me how you guys strategize going about making unsexy brands sexy.
Yeah, I think, I'll start on ground zero about who we tend to work with. So mid-market B2Bs with really highly niche audiences and typically long sales cycles, whether that be a product or service, tend to be our bread and butter. Okay. That typically means we're working with companies who have been referral based for the entire existence of their business, whether that be 5 years or 30 plus years. It potentially means that their business has been built on the founder's friends that he golfs with, right? And as those businesses need to professionalize because they're hitting a point of 50 million a year, 100 million a year, even breaking into a billion a year, they need to professionalize as they continue to go into new markets. Competition is getting tighter, right? Maybe they've lost ground, or maybe they're a new player in the space. And so ultimately, where they've relied on referrals and relationships, they need to professionalize their business to break themselves from any key man for an inbound opportunity here. And so this is where brand really comes into place. We use brand synonymously with reputation. Okay. And so everyone from you, me, or any business has a reputation in the marketplace. Are they cheap? Are they a premium, right? Do they deliver on the product or service that they say they do? Okay. Do they undersell and over-deliver? Do the opposite, right? What's their returning customers like? Do people rant and rave about them? Can they turn current customers in to people who are actually doing the marketing for you? Because damn, like my experience has been so good with this business, right? And so when we think about how does brand continue to evolve here, it's really how do we craft the narrative around what reputation we want the businesses we work with to have in the marketplace. How do we do that in a way that differentiates themselves amongst the competition? So that way everyone isn't saying the same thing. And how do we make sure that we're putting the end prospect, end customer first in terms of how we are presenting ourselves? We are always the guide. We're always the guide in the story, right? We're always the guide. That being, the clients that we work with.
I think that being in a boring industry is funny, right? Because maybe it's just an excuse for boring marketing. But
Sure.
when you talk about making a boring company interesting, how do you do that without pretending that it's something it's not? How are you able to make them interesting when the general public doesn't really find them interesting?
Yeah, that's great. I think a lot of commercial construction. So commercial construction is great. We do a lot of work in that space. Okay, commercial construction is an AEC is almost exclusively built on referrals and RFP processes. And I know Dan who works at that company, and so I need to build a new building. I'm just going to call Dan again. That's great. Okay, and if you go across the entire AEC industry, almost everyone's saying the same thing. Our people are a difference. Safety matters. We like complex projects, right? And all that's cool. But when you actually take a look at their work, they're using design as a differentiator amongst their competition, right? So you kind of go down the line and look at AEC companies who are using design as a differentiator. Are you someone who pushes like a modernist building type or a brutalist building type? Like, is that things that you want? Like, is style your differentiator? Is complexity of projects that are higher risk that other people don't want to take on? Is that your differentiator in the marketplace, right? And so when we think, how do we bring that to life? We use this phrase design as a differentiator all the time, right? And so those businesses are doing that in their own regard, whether they know it or not. They do know that, but the way that they present themselves from a brand standpoint, they're often not doing that. And so we think about professionalizing these businesses in an outward fashion, how they present themselves to the world, so we can dictate the conversation around, like, you all know you have a differentiator. Are you presenting it in such a way that is different from the competition? Are you presenting it in such a way that is professionalized? And are you presenting it in such a way that is easy to digest and puts me at the hero of your story, me being the customer in this situation?
I think that's really fascinating. One of the questions I was going to ask you is, can design create differentiation? But you've addressed that really closely. And I actually had an experience with a commercial construction company where I was interviewing for a job. And I asked them the question, I'm like, well, what makes you different than XYZ company just down the road? And the person told me, I'm the difference. Like, you have me to work with. I was like, that's great, but there's one of you over there too, right? Like, there's really nothing unique about you that can't be found at another place. the thought of like the creative aspect, like how are you designing or doing something that's actually different and making that a part of that brand seems like a huge differentiation and a huge value that makes, in this situation, construction materials sound a little more exciting. So I can already feel that excitement for something that I thought was very boring.
Sure. And, oftentimes it's about making your organization, I love the phrase of professionalizing, but if we like dumb that down, it's like, what does that actually mean? Like, do you look bigger and badder and more organized and like your quality of work and that your employees all look of a higher standard than the competition does, right? You could be the world's greatest company and greatest construction company. And if your website doesn't look the part and your, the banners around your job sites and your sales collateral and your proposals and your RFP process, if all of that doesn't look buttoned up, you may still win jobs on referrals, and that's great. But you also may be losing jobs or losing perception in the marketplace where you could really regain market share because of an improvement in that perception. And this is where brand can make a huge impact. If all things are equal, right? Why are you choosing one organization or another? It's always down to reputation. And that's where brand is synonymous with reputation. Who are you going to go with? Who looks more professionalized? Who looks equipped to handle our project and where I'm going to be spending millions and millions of dollars, right? Is it the person on a Wix website or a Squarespace website? And this is a stupid example, but I think it's pertinent. Or is it someone who has a fully fleshed out marketing trade show system? Everything looks in unison, right? And there's some continuity and the message is resonating with me. And those, either or situations, you're always going to go with the business that looks more professionalized and is speaking directly to me.
You're a step ahead of me, I think, on some of these questions. My next question was going to be, a lot of these companies have been successful. They've made a lot of revenue, like you're saying. Maybe they're 50 million, maybe they're 500 million, whatever the case. And they have relied on word of mouth marketing. Their relationships are strong. They're the identity of the company. They don't feel like they need a marketing agency. Marketing agencies are just where people throw away their money to try to get to what they got to already.
Sure.
So how do you position yourself in those types of conversations to let them know, like, there's so much more to this? I want to understand how you position the value of marketing and branding.
Yeah. I think the short answer is you called me. We're 100% inbound business, right? And
well,
so
let me take it back a step then.
Yeah.
Why do they start feeling the need to call you? What are they recognizing that there's a gap? What do they see?
Something, right? So typically, we're really lucky in the sense that I don't have to make people necessarily believe in marketing all day long because we're an inbound business. So they've called us at this point, right? Now, why they've called us, there's going to be a symptom that's felt, and then there's an actual diagnosis that needs to be uncovered, okay? That symptom is typically like, we aren't getting enough leads. We're losing market share. Oh, look at that. Thumbs up. That's great. We're losing market share, right? The competition is right on our coattails. Or hell, maybe I'm new into a marketplace and I'm trying to make headway, right? I'm trying to steal market share from an incumbent who's been there for a very long time. Maybe I'm prepping for acquisition or roll-up, right? Because of the private equity space. Maybe I'm at a position where we have hyper growth and we actually want to take on, seed funding to make this exponential growth. There's all these different situations that cause a point of inflection where they're saying, hey, I have these symptoms, right? But I don't know exactly what that problem is that's leading to said symptoms. And it's our job to help uncover what that actual diagnosis is. And oftentimes the diagnosis for what people are calling us for, whether, hey, we either don't have enough leads or we're losing leads. That's an easy example. You could say, hey, we could run more ads, and that may be cool. But if you're getting to the right audiences already and it's not resonating, this is a foundational problem. This isn't a distribution problem. This may be a market alignment problem. This may be a messaging problem. This may be an audience problem. Hell, maybe your reputation just isn't very good in the marketplace because you've done a bad job in the past. Maybe your business has changed. You have new services and new products and offerings that you didn't have before. So people don't know who you are. Right? If you're a long-standing business, maybe you don't know who you are anymore because the business has changed over 50 years. I think it's our job to help uncover exactly what those foundational diagnoses are and then walk that client through that transitional process, whether that be helping them to refigure out who they are and go back in the market. Maybe it's define who they actually are, or maybe it's navigating mergers and acquisitions. and then taking that back into the marketplace. All of those are where we'll start from a foundational perspective. And then we'll start talking about distribution, tactics, and growth after that. Because we often say we don't want to drive people to an empty home, right? You get one chance at that first impression. I can spend all the money in the world in distribution, but if the house is falling apart here that I send everybody to, then that was like set my money on fire. That was wasted cost.
Well, my next question is, what does a real brand evolution actually change when you're needing to like course correct for somebody versus when you need to actually go into a full website redesign because maybe, like you said, things are broken and you don't want to drive someone to that house?
Yeah, that's great. And so, we talk about rebranding versus brand evolution, and there's nuance to that. But I think really the differentiation in that is when I think of a brand evolution, usually you're talking about an established business who has some sense of who they are, but the business has changed. They have new products, new services, or new audiences that they need to appeal to, and then you just figure out how to appropriately navigate. Hey, we've been X in the past, but we're turning into Y into the future. And we need to bring our past with us while moving into these new markets, right? So we often find this in like a modernization situation, right? With age-old businesses. Hey, we've been around for 100 years. That's great. But do you want to look like the stodgy 100-year-old business, or do you want to look like the business that's set for the next 100 years in the future, right? How do you show that modernity with that? And we view that as an evolution, right? We're not changing your name. We're not changing completely how you market yourself or how you position yourself. On the other end, you'll think of rebrands, okay? This is because we've taken a hard right turn, or maybe we've gone through mergers and acquisitions where we were this business before, but we are now completely unrecognizable business into the future, right? We're not only trying to redefine who we are externally, but we need to redefine who we are internally, right? And in those rebrand scenarios, those can often be very messy as you're taking in opinions from, people who have been there a long time, and this company is taking a brand new direction. But oftentimes, part of that process is being able to create that rallying cry internally, as well as repositioning the business as a whole externally.
As you talk about this, I'm thinking about how complicated some of these rebrands are. And when people are coming to you, they could potentially be coming to you because things have started to fall apart. And it's not always an agency's goal to take on a customer that doesn't have a clear vision of their future, because trying to translate that into functional marketing can be very, very complicated. So do you feel like you guys can can great SEO save a very forgettable customer? Do you feel like your business coaching, almost consulting at that point, is a big part of what you guys do to help companies reposition themselves and evolve into what they need to do?
Yeah, right. I think this is a great question. And so there's a really easy example of this, right? And so it's really hard for a business to define who they are for themselves. And I think the easy example is if I interviewed you, Koa, and I said, hey, describe to me exactly who you think Koa is. Okay, tell me. Okay, give me the rundown. Boom, 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 boom.
That, right? Like I hate
right? Here's my values. Here's my principles. Here's who I'm fit for. Like, kind of give me the rundown. Now, let me go ask your 5 closest friends and ask them the same thing. What your 5 closest friends say about you is going to be far more accurate than what you say about you. It's just the nature of the game, right? And so very similarly, when we think of how does a business evolve their reputation, their brand, how do they change the reputation of their brand? If they try and do that for themselves, they're oftentimes way too close to the product and the problem. And so that's where an outside resource and outside consultancy can really help. It tends to be people, when they talk about themselves, put themselves as a hero of the story, and allowing someone like me to come in, or like our agency to come in and say, hey, we'll interview you. We're going to take all of the inputs that we can. We're also going to do market research. We're also going to talk to your customers, and we're going to help you all reposition yourselves for the future. That oftentimes is putting someone else as the hero of the story and repositioning the company as the guide to said hero, right? And that's very tough to do from the shoes that the business actually sits in. Now, you had mentioned, like, how does SEO play into this? That's a distribution tactic. How do we re-enter that into the marketplace after the fact, right? Because again, if their foundation, their positioning, how they present themselves is faulty, they may be able to be found all over the internet with search, right? Reddit, YouTube, whatever, AI. And if they're wrongly positioned, they can be found, but it doesn't matter. It's not going to lead to closes. It's not going to lead to additional revenue. And so we got to make sure that their positioning and message and audience is sound before we start talking about distribution tactics to drive net new lives.
And then you turn them into the guy. If you're not the guy, not the guy. What does being the guy actually mean at Atomic Dust or to Sam Heaton?
I love the phrase that there's riches in the niches, right? Shout out to I forget the show now. God, if you're going to bring it up, you're going to nail it. But I love this.
Whoever said it, shout out to him.
Yeah, shout out. But I love the concept of riches in the niches, right? And so as we enter in this world of generative search, where you're always going to be presented with fewer and fewer options, right? I think take a timeline of this. So if you think back to Yellow Pages and I'm looking for a law firm, you may go through page after page after page to find the law firm, right? And you're going to call all of these people, but there's nothing to say which one's better or worse on these pages, other than maybe someone put AAA so they showed up at the top of the Yellow Pages, right? But there's nothing to denote difference between these people other than me calling and getting a feel for it. Entering the internet and the onset of search, you have domain authority and all these other things and quality of content and everything else that's being produced, reviews that help dictate, hey, these are the top 10, best options that we feel based on all the data that we have as Google or others as you navigate your search. Okay. And so that's great, but I still may go to page 2 and page 3 to do some of my own research. I may ask friends and go to Reddit and, call on my buddy and be like, hey, do you have experience? And all that's still true. But as we enter into the world of generative search, where the answers are far more pinpointed and refined and the questions are more absolute, as well as the answers to said questions, it is going to be really, really difficult for businesses to succeed if they're everything to everybody, because then they'll become nobody to everybody at that same point. So when I love this phrase of if you're not the guy, then you're not the guy. What I mean by that is if you haven't defined down enough and found a narrow lane to compete in and be really successful in that narrow lane, if you are option 6, you ain't going to be found anymore. You got to be option 1, and if you're not option 1 in that current sea, you should probably find a smaller puddle to play in, and that's okay. But be the guy in that smaller puddle.
Was position 6 ever really a prize? I
don't know if it was a prize, but
really ever a prize, or was it something marketing just leveraged for good conversation?
It's a great question. Was it ever the target? It was never the target, but at least it gave you a swinger's chance, a batter's chance, right? Now, if you're outside positions 1, 2, and 3, you're not going to be seen, because
it's a consolation prize for trying, right?
Right, you need to find a smaller pond, truly. And so this is that concept of niche down further, and this has always been the case in SEO, right? You think of long tail keywords, that's been the nature of the game. Find a smaller pond that you can compete in, no doubt. But now with the onset of generative search, that is becoming from a business's positioning. It is becoming far more niche. It's far easier for non-enterprise sized businesses just niche down even further and further and further, because in the world of generative search, where you're only going to be presented with one answer to your question, be that answer to a very, very specific question.
Do you think that the age of agencies reporting rankings is coming to an end?
Oh yeah. I also, I would take it a step further that I don't know that clicks matter anymore. I don't. Okay. So in our space and the B2B world, now I will say direct to consumer situations and e-com where your sales journey is, a single click to conversion. Sure. Absolutely. Right. If you're selling t-shirts, sunglasses, you name it. Absolutely. That does, measure that. But in the sense of a 3-month, 6-month, or 3-year sales cycle, am I really all that worried that someone clicked to my website or clicked on my ad? I'm not. It's reach and frequency is our measures, right? And when I turn that into search, I don't necessarily care about rankings. I care about views. Things are becoming more billboard oriented. You're going to go do your search. You're going to get your background info, And then you're going to go take that search to Reddit, and you're going to go take that search to your Slack channel. You're going to go take that search to LinkedIn, and then you're eventually going to type it directly into your search bar. Like all of these steps that are untrackable, we call it dark social, right? Like where you're not going to track that. And so like, I don't necessarily know that, to bring this back, I don't necessarily know that rankings matter anymore. And I also don't know that clicks necessarily will matter into the future. Like there's a tracking element, but like you need to be seen, and you need to be seen in a way that's positioned to solve a very particular product. And if you can do that, you'll win.
Well, then there's a question of where to be seen. And you've already listed a few of the options that people have, but Google, YouTube, Reddit, LinkedIn, industry publications, the LLMs, everywhere. How do you decide where a surface or which surface a brand should be visible on? How does your team go about optimizing for that?
Yeah, that's great. I love the analogy of a Swiss Army knife, right? You want to be a Swiss Army knife or a Bowie knife. And, you know, if you ever use a Swiss Army knife, apologies, I'm a redneck cook. If you ever use a scissors on a Swiss Army knife, they don't cut shit, right?
Yeah, maybe
right. And then neither does a nail file. Like none of the things are good. And so rather than spread out everywhere and do a poor job, pick fewer lanes to do an excellent job on. Okay. And so an example of this could be, you know, it may be really, really tough for an emerging business to compete in their industry if they're a new player on something like organic search. That's great. But they can go do an excellent job of dominating in the Reddit sphere and connecting with prospects who are running comparative type searches within Reddit. So I think of like, we have a client who's in the warehouse management software space. Okay. Product WMS versus WMS is a constant search. Okay. However, if you take that to a search bar, you're going to compete against giant ERPs, which are bigger and more enterprise than a standard WMS system that would be applicable for like a 3PL or an e-commerce shipping warehouse. Okay. However, the CISOs and IT individuals, rather than spending their time like navigating through all these ERPs that cost way too much for them on Google search, they'll go straight to Reddit and they'll say, okay, compare these two WMSs, right? What's good? What's more flexible? What's the cost on these, right? What feature sets do they have? Are they niched down to industries that I work in, right? That's more applicable for me. These things are happening on Reddit every single day. And in that marketplace, there is no majority share of market from a single WMS. Okay. And so for that space, like, yes, do we need to write content for organic search? Sure. But rather than be position 6, 10, or 100 on organic search, we can be very effective producing and engaging with prospects in Reddit. And that still feeds into LLMs and supports in generative search. It's just doing it in a different playing field. And so for us, part of our job is figuring out which of those playing fields best fits for where our customer is at based on budget, life cycle, and competition in their industry, and trying to find that best green space.
It sounds counterintuitive to what most people would find if they tried to figure out where to market their company, because it seems like everyone would just go everywhere. You're saying that you're trying to focus on a few instead of trying to capture all of them.
If budgets are endless, yeah, go everywhere. But I've yet to be in a situation where budgets are endless. And if you are in those situations, I applaud you. Have fun. But for us, it's, in any company that is in growth phase or redefining phase, right, mid-market, usually you're trying to squeeze the juice, right? How am I making lemonade out of lemons? And so in the world of being found, right, like the ever expanding world of like what SEO means, it used to just mean Google, but Reddit's crawlable. Right, Reddit's cited on LLMs. YouTube is now crawlable. LinkedIn is now crawlable. All of these places are now crawlable. And so, is there a playing field that you can make a bigger impact on for that same investment?
Coming back to the quality aspect of it, why you wouldn't necessarily go for everything at the same time, because you'd be spread so thin that you would just produce maybe low quality stuff across all platforms instead of being hyper specific. You have also talked about your company being maybe a leader in some sense in automation and trying to like build out AI processes for your clients as well. It seems like that still has a little bit of I think of the right word here, but it still hints that the quality might be going down if you start bringing in too much automation. So tell me, what should agencies be automating today? Where can you automate some of your marketing without losing quality?
In the future of AI and automation, right, as the gap between what's good and great shrinks, and the even availability of what we call bad in the marketplace almost completely erodes, right? Commoditizing, if you will, of design. Taste is what remains. Okay.
I love this.
Taste will always be what remains. Why am I choosing X over Y? Okay. That will always have a place in the market. Look, in any commodity marketplace, taste is a differentiator, right? If price is equal, the only thing left is taste. And so what role does the agency of the future have in a world that is heavily automated, and the barrier to entry on things like design, marketing, go-to-market is removed, right? That knowledge gap becomes heavily removed. The role of the agency is someone who is giving you the confidence to take that bet, go in this direction, spend that money here, right? That role will always exist. This is why consultancies everywhere are still around, right? Everyone has a McKinsey deck. Like people have spoken to BlackRock. The reason these businesses exist is, one, they have taste and expertise in their space. They can tell you to make this decision over another. They're also a scapegoat, which has value, right? Oh, look at that. I got more. I got more of these.
Celebrating the scapegoats. Huh?
Yeah. Thank you. But there's also something to be said about having someone else that's lower on the totem pole. So when things go awry, I have someone to blame, and when things go successful, I get to claim those wins as someone who's in house. And that, as agencies continue to reposition themselves, will be where the agency of the future remains. Previously, agencies were built on offsetting labor. Okay, you'll pay us for hours. That's great. Labor is being commoditized. Okay, so what is left is expertise, taste, right, and giving you the confidence about where to spend your money, consulting, if you will. Okay, and so for us, how do we continue to position for the future? There's this old phrase: if you can nail two things together that have never been nailed together before, like that's how you get rich, right? And so for us, we are a boutique design agency. That is, our bread and butter, and we are nailing that together with AI and automation. Okay, where we think that AI and automation can work well for us is it can help us scale distribution. Okay, if we can spend our time and energy and our focus on how companies differentiate themselves, right? What their foundational brand looks like, what their core message is, how do we better find their audiences and where they operate and be in those spots? How do we produce design sets, if you will, and tactics and strategies that we can then implement? We can use AI and automation to go to market faster. Okay, we can use AI and automation to iterate quicker. We can help speed up distribution. It used to take 6+ months to build a website. Okay, it did, but we could have design done in month one. Every month that new website's not out is missed new incoming revenue, or missed new conversions because we improved the conversion rate. Like, it's missed opportunities. And so the cost benefit analysis of this is, if I can get the website out faster, okay, but it still has really unique and differentiating design and messaging, then the company is willing to pay a premium for that, because there's recouped months back in the market quicker. And that distribution of that site is where we feel that AI can make a massive, massive impact for us. People will still pay us for premium design and boutique creative. That's great. The value of that actually goes up. It's the ability to get into market quicker is where we view AI and automation as a golden lever
I like
for us.
that a lot. Yeah, getting there quicker, but with your own strategy still driving it, sounds like the way that it's being wielded to the most success. There's a lot of people wielding it maybe in ways that we wouldn't recommend. So as my final question for you, where do you see AI being used in ways that it really shouldn't be used? Where is it being used incorrectly in marketing agencies today?
I think the biggest challenge for both in-house and out-of-house marketers is going to be them getting caught in a sea of sameness. Okay, this is where I think the value of taste has now gone up tremendously. If everyone's pretty damn good, the person who is great is really, really obvious. Okay, it makes it so much harder to be the one who is differentiated as what is deemed great design. Okay, great tactics, great marketing. Okay, if everyone can get like a B or a C+, the person who's really A is going to be breakthrough. Okay, right now I think a lot of agencies, the way I see it currently in the marketplace, is they're still billing on hours. They're using AI to reduce the number of hours needed to provide work. And so now they're forcing themselves in a race to the bottom, okay, in terms of, oh, damn, I used to do this project for 100 hours. Now I'm doing it for 25. That means I need to now have 4 clients of 25 hours to make up for the one client that I used to have at 100 hours. And that is going to kill your shop, okay? It's also, if for the in-house marketer, if that is how you're using, I am producing things at such a volume that the value per thing I am producing is going down, okay? You are shooting yourself in the foot. Put it like, this is another simple example, okay? Just because I can put out 100 social media posts a day does not mean I should put out 100 social media posts per day, okay? Just because I can hit on 100 girls at the bar doesn't mean that's going to work for me. The grass is greener where you water, okay? And so how should marketers really be utilizing it? Testing and iteration and speed for deployment so they can capitalize on new, fresh ideas that can help differentiate themselves amongst the marketplace. If volume becomes the goal, okay, both in terms of I need a higher volume of clients to do good to cover my bills as an agency, or volume as a goal as I'm just putting out more stuff to like fill timelines, but the quality has not gone up, or the differentiation has not gone up, or the strategy behind it has not become more sound, right? Then you're just shooting yourself in the foot. Volume cannot be the goal. You will lose that battle 9 out of 10 times.
I want to take that a bit, I could understand that a bit more, because volume is preached by many, especially in the social media areas, as a way of gaining traction, gaining visibility. But this seems like like if you're a small company, you think volume, and you can produce low quality work at volume to get yourself in the game. But I want to ask, do you feel that that's valuable to start, or do you feel like people should be taking it slower and going quality over quantity even to get started?
Context is everything, but there's always a point of diminishing returns. Okay, there's always a point of diminishing returns, and so social media, social posts, again, stupid easy example. Okay, is 10 posts probably better than 1 over the course of 2 weeks? Yeah, probably. Is 100 posts over those 10 in the course of 2 weeks better than those 10? Probably not. Right? There will be a point of diminishing returns, and the job is to find that. And the use of AI and automation is how can that help me get to distribution to that point, right? Faster and easier and with less friction. Currently, it may take we may not have the design bandwidth to make 10 posts, but I have the design bandwidth to make 2. 2 is better than none, but 10 is better than 2 in this situation. I just don't have the bandwidth to do that. I don't have the the man hours to get that done. And that's where AI and automation can expedite that. But if you take that on an exponential curve, you're like, okay, well, I can make 10. Why wouldn't I make 100? This is that point where you start shooting yourself in the foot. You hit the law of diminishing returns on this, right?
I love that you brought up flavor. If I'm thinking from the consumer's perspective, flavor is what I could come across my mind in the same way of the sea of everything. If I walk down the grocery store, down the ice cream aisle, and I see vanilla all the way down, when I finally run into a little bit of chocolate, I'm way more excited to see it. And it gets more and more, you want to see variety to it. So I can definitely see the sea of sameness. If every LinkedIn post, whether it was 10 or 100, starts to feel like the same post, you just start being blind to it in the first place.
It doesn't resonate, right? There's nothing that you want to train your customer to look for you, right? But you want to train. You also want to, whatever they grow accustomed to, you want to be able to change that as well. So it's like, oh man, like what's different? That's a good thing.
I think that's the crumble cookie analogy strategy, right? They change the flavor every week, so you're always curious what's going on.
Yeah, what's
even
next,
if it wasn't
right?
The flavor you wanted.
The job of a business in the content space is to provide value, whether you're a customer or not. Like that's what SEO, like everything that people are producing for SEO, it's like, how are you providing value to me, right? Before I ever buy from you. And so if you want to keep providing value, you got to keep coming up with new things, man. Like things have got to change. And AI can help you iterate that faster, and that's where it's a dream come true. But
Right.
if you mass produce the same thing without new iteration, then you stop providing value.
We have an upcoming podcast recording for why you should be paying your SEO agency 6 months later. And it's truly if they're providing value. And I'm excited
Sure.
to dive into that with future guests. Sam, we're out of time today. I appreciate you giving us your time to discuss what's going on in the world of, and I'm in my perspective, branding specifically, but in your side of things, truly providing value and making something that wasn't sexy again by becoming the guy or the solution. Sam, thank you again for joining us for SEO on Air. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.